Voltaire, let me go deep, a couple of things down, and then I will have to wrap up for today. Voltaire, this person, if anybody is a Muslim, should have personal, and I put it on record, that any person who is a Mu'min should have a personal revulsion against this man. Because he was, generally speaking, was making deep satire, prejudice against religion, and particularly Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This person, this is what, and he's deeply, let me give you an incident, what he did.
Democracy. He's a guy who...
Let me tell you what he did, and how the Muslims reacted. He made a play against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in France. And the Muslims were offended. The ambassador, the Osmania Khilafah ambassador in France, in Paris, objected. And the reply was, this was freedom of speech. The Sultan...
And the message went back to...
The Sultan...
Not Sultan, I mean the Khalifa.
The Khalifa Sultan, what his name was?
Ottoman...
The Osmania Khalifa.
In 18th century?
And he said, if this is the case, then we also have freedom not to unload French ships off our port. So all Muslim laborers in Istanbul refused to unload goods from French ships. And the message was spread out. French ships and trade was totally boycotted across the Muslim lands. Across the Muslim lands, because they were united. And 3 days later, that play was suspended.
Muslims used to have power at that time.
So this person...
Multiple factors.
So this person...
Unity, power, caliphate, spirit, iman, all these things were there. Now it's gone. Everything is gone.
So this is what he says. The Negro is a species of different man from ours. Ours, as the breed of spaniels, is from that of greyhounds. You know what is a spaniel and a greyhound, right? These are breeds of good dogs. The mucous membrane or network which nature has spread between the muscles and the skin is white in us and black or copper covered in them. You know how deeply offensive this statement is? This was one of the great changes of being concept in the Enlightenment. This is... Can anyone tell me what this reminds you of? So this is the purpose of the purpose was this. There was a hierarchy that lived all living organisms of the world. God being the first, then the angels, then man, then all the way down to the smallest insect. What does this remind you of?
Human is a part of the God.
That's one, but it just reminds you of the theology of the Hinduism, the caste system. See, let me emphasize. See, we think things are different, right? But basically, they are the same thing, molded in different ways. This is nothing more than the caste system that used to justify zulm in India for centuries. This is another way of doing it. This is using the language of science.
Brahman and Shudra.
Actually, second para is more relevant with Indian context.
Of the existing.
To serve the higher brain.
So this guy will be considered the grandfather of racism, scientific racism. Carl Linnaeus. Anybody who has done basic biology, taxonomy, medicine will know that this guy. He is the one who started, the taxonomical structure, the plant kingdom, animal kingdom, all these things. He's a respected. Look at how he divided human beings. Europeans, Asiaticus, Americanus, Monstrous, Africanus.
What is monstrous?
Did I put it there?
I hope they're not putting Muslim there. Monstrous.
I think, yeah, Monstrous was the Arabs, the Mediterranean, if I'm mistaken. मेरे पास हो गया.
So what's that in the brackets? Blood, optimistic.
Yeah, I will not go into details. Let's go in here. We will discuss this. These are the list of all the people who have had one time or the other, I shouldn't say one time or the other, who have supported scientific racism. Look at this guy. Look at this guy. Benjamin Rush, founding father of the United States. Darwin. What does he say? At some future period, not very distant as measured by centuries, the civilized races of man will almost certainly exterminate and replace the savage races throughout the world. Do you understand the meaning of that?
This is exactly what
The
Nazis
superior
did.
races will
Nazis
eliminate
did
the
the same thing.
inferior races.
Holocaust was the outcome of this,
Exactly.
this thought process.
Yes. Okay. I will repeat this thing here. I want to touch one thing and then close here really fast. All this, remember who this guy was? Ernest Haeckel? Remember we were discussing about his phylogeny repeats autogeny, where he produced a proof of evolution by saying the embryo goes through these transformations, and he made all those things up. This is that guy. He was one of the vocal supporters of Darwinism. Okay, he was a polygynist, and he believed deeply in the racism of science, based on science. Look at this, what he says. Karl Vogt believed that the Negro race was related to the ape. Okay? And all this, such institutional racism, and I'm going to touch on this thing and then close on it. Such institutional racism was affected by phrenology, physiognomy, craniometric. We will go in through those racist sciences. And this resulted in 1906 as Ota Benga, a pygmy, was displayed as the missing link in the Bronx Zoo, New York City, alongside apes and animals. Okay? So next slide is what?